Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends Marvel's Kid Omega, an X-Men figure in the Chode Build-A-Figure wave. And when I saw this release, I thought, who? I'm just not familiar with this character at all, but I did some research, and it generally looks right-ish. We're going to talk about some issues, of course, but it's generally the right look, so I can't complain about that. But it is an embarrassing repaint for Hasbro for a variety of reasons, and we're going to get into all of that. But first we have to get him off the stand so we can take a closer look. This guy stands just shy, well, let's say 15.75 centimeters, right around that, and that's going to make him pretty close to about 6 and... let's go 6 1/4. That's probably a little high for scaling purposes, but it's about to the top of his hair. Darwin is a little bit taller. All right. Okay, let's do a question of the day. Were you familiar with this character prior to Hasbro announcing the release? I was not. I am an X-Men fan, but I don't know anything about this character other than what I looked up since I saw it. So, okay. All right, so let's talk about the aesthetic on this guy. This is mostly reused parts, and that's not necessarily a problem, but in some ways it is. Firstly, this body does have relatively nice proportions. The figure's head is way too big for sure, like 100% for sure, definitely too big. But the body itself is really nicely done. Overall, it's very solid. It's a good release for the most part. I will note that it is solid black plastic everywhere except the head. Any color on there is paint. They did do a clean paint job for the Omega logos and extra lines going around his body. It's definitely clean enough. Is it absolutely perfect? No, but it's pretty darn clean. It is not, however, saturated enough for my liking. In most artwork, even including the artwork on the package, he's got some pretty good saturation in there. And on the figure, it's almost white. I mean, it's not, but it's pretty pale. So there is that to consider. The other thing to consider, the flesh tone they used on his hands, it's very pink. And then the paint job on his neck, not very good. And then the paint job on his face is horrible, and also the sculpt is, and also the glasses are. I mean, I guess maybe they'd be okay if they were colored, but more colored, I guess, but they're also huge. They're supposed to just look like glasses, like sunglasses, and these are humongous. And also the hair sculpt is not good. It looks like something sitting on his head rather than something coming out of his head. I get that it's a separate piece of plastic sitting on top of plastic, but it still needs to be sculpted to curl down at the front, and it doesn't. This just looks like somebody smeared icing on his head. But that face sculpt and paint job put together is straight up doo-doo. And if you take the glasses down, if you bend the glasses down, you can see his face shape is super weird. And his eyebrow goes like around his whole head. It's a really, really, really rough release as far as the head goes. It's bad. The base body is generally okay, but I'll point out they did include the web wing flap holes in his arms. I don't know if you can see those because he's solid black. So there's also the issue of the way the head fits on the body. Because it is too big and poorly sculpted, people don't have that that big shelf right there. People don't have that. And if you want to do it this way, you can, but then the head sticks like... that's clearly not good either. So whatever Hasbro's doing, it's wrong. It's bad. It's really, really bad. The only two good things about this figure. One, the reused body is a good base body overall, so I can't complain about that too much. And two, the paints are clean on the body. Still lacking saturation, and the head is just throwaway garbage. It's really, really bad. So I'm going to give this figure an aesthetic rating of, for being almost entirely just a reused body with a minimal amount of paint, though it is clean, it's only going to get a 5 out of 10 for the aesthetic. This is just not good enough. It's not super glossy, so I guess that's okay, but having web wing holes in his arms, that's not cool. The horrible head, that's not cool. If nothing else, it should be more saturated to make it look interesting, and that's not there. So that's pretty disappointing. Now, as far as accessories go, you get the 2 fist hands, and then you get 2 gripping hands. That's pretty good, you would think, except the gripping hands do not have trigger fingers. I think Hasbro needs to get in touch with Todd and be like, hey, you got some trigger fingers we can borrow? I'm sure he does. Because he comes with a gun. This really cool gun that's transparent pink plastic. It's like a psionic projection. And I like it. It's done pretty well. Also not very saturated though, so that's a bit of a bummer. But I can get past that if he could hold it, but he cannot without cutting the trigger guard off. So, accessory-wise, 5 out of 10. Almost had a better score, but he can't hold his gun. So, let's move on to the Articulation. The head is on a hinge, so you know you're gonna get plenty of range. It's just gonna look inappropriate, or like incorrect, not inappropriate, in basically any pose. The head's too big and the neck is just ugly and janky. So it's time for Hasbro to mature as a company in terms of their design philosophy, because this neck joint just isn't working on most figures, and then the giant heads. It's not a good combo. Alright, butterfly joint on this body. Very, very limited range. Almost none. You do get your full rotation. You get your hinge. Oh, you have to really force it. Is it going to scratch the paint? We're going to find out together. Did it scratch off that Omega logo? I think it probably didn't. I think Hasbro at least gets their paint on there pretty good. Let's see. We're good. Alright, that's a plus. Bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow. This is that really ugly Spider-Man elbow that is really ugly, but it is pinless. The figure is pinless, so you guys wanted pinless, you got it, but now we have all kinds of other issues to deal with that I'm guessing are taken out of that budget. Wrists have a swivel and a hinge. The gripping hands do have vertical hinges, so that's nice, but he still can't hold his gun. Leaning back works okay, but very, very little range. Leaning forward, even less range. Side to side is decent. I like that. Rotation is okay. They did continue to paint around enough, so that's good. And then you get the ab crunch down here, which helps to lean, but is very, very unuseful when the upper torso doesn't work. If those joints were flipped around, ball peg down here and hinge up here, it's way, way, way more useful. I would argue for ball peg here and here, but apparently they don't want to do that. For the hips, there's no drop down or anything, but he can kick pretty darn high, which goes to show that can happen without a drop down. They go back, that's nice. Out to the side, not splits, but probably far enough. And then you get your thigh swivel, that's all okay. Double jointed knees, again, pinless. And there's no arguing, pinless does look better, but the fact is that it doesn't work as well in terms of QC, because you often get very stuck joints that often become very loose. Or they're just loose to start with. But the proportioning is good, and it is pinless, so if you like that, that's good. The plastics they have to use make it a problem. You can't just, well, it doesn't matter, you guys don't care about plastics. But you do get your shin swivel right there. Ankle goes all the way back, ankle goes all the way forward, and you get a really decent ankle rocker. So yeah, articulation's okay. Nothing really impressive, it's solid. And definitely could be a lot better, so I'll give it a 7. It's perfectly acceptable. And now it's time for the final verdict. Is this a good release from Hasbro? Well, not really. It's not a terrible release, but it's a reused body. You could argue that that makes it good enough, that it's a good reused body. And fair enough, it is a pretty good reused body, but the head is hot garbage. It looks so bad if you ask me. The glasses are huge, way too huge, and the sculpt on his face is way too bad. And his hair looks like cake icing, and he can't hold his gun. And the pink's not even saturated, so for me, this final verdict has gotta be no higher than a 5 out of 10. It just doesn't look good. Enough. If the head sculpt was good, then sure, 7, no problem. I don't care that much about the saturation, and the base body is solid. But not being able to hold a gun, and having that ugly head, and then you can add in all the other things because of spite, it's just not good enough. So there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about the figure in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the review by giving it a thumbs up if you liked it, a thumbs down if you didn't. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.